first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Dibbler. Thank you for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. I always like to remind everybody of that. You can find our segments on the Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel, KPTV.com, under the Fox 12 Now tab, or on the Fox 12 Oregon apps. So those are the different options you have to watch and share these after the fact. Right now, we are talking about the LA wildfires that are currently happening, and in particular, the number of Oregon resources that have been sent down there to help fight those fires. And this is something that the city of LA requested, the state of California rather, really, and Oregon responded. And I wanted to find out a little bit more about how that actually transpires, how the designation and determination is made as far as what resources are going to be sent down there. And to do so, I spoke to the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office and John Hendricks, who works for the Public Affairs Department there. So John joined to walk us through that and really provide a little bit more clarity on how that interstate cooperation works. So here it is right now. John, thanks for having some time to talk to us. I know obviously this is a very busy time for everybody on the West Coast, but since you're here with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office, going through everything with that, I thought it was a really good opportunity to find out just a little bit about how this works. And I think, really when it comes down to it, when LA calls and says, hey, I need some help with wildfires, and they call Oregon, what are the steps that happen? What does Oregon do, and how do you determine what resources are available, personnel, all of that, in order to send down to help them fight what's going on down there?
So the different states like Oregon and California, we have the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. That's an agreement between the states that we can send resources to help each other out during times of disaster like we're seeing down in California. And so those requests, they work through the state's emergency management folks. So our request comes through the Oregon Department of Emergency Management. And so they say California is dealing with this and they need X amount of resources. What can you do? So that's how the process kind of gets started.
So California will say, hey, we want, if we can, have this many resources. I guess when you talk about resources, can you clarify what it is that they're specifically asking for?
It depends on what the incident is. So we sent resources out to North Carolina during the hurricane to help with recovery out there, and they just wanted a small incident management team. So with California, they were looking for strike teams of firefighters and fire engines. So it kind of depends on what the incident is and what we have available to send.
So when California is asking for strike teams of firefighters and resources and vehicles and things like that, how do you determine which fire departments across the state are the ones that are going to be sending something and which resources come from which one?
That's an excellent question. So we use the Oregon Fire Mutual Aid System. That's the group of the 300 plus local fire agencies across the state. It's like your Hillsborough Fire, your Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, Gaston. It's all of those local fire agencies. So each one of those, they work with the Fire Defense Board chief. Typically, there's a Fire Defense Board chief for every county, but some of them might be doubled up. So we might have a couple counties that work together under one Fire Defense Board chief. So we work through those chiefs. We send out an alert that says, hey, what resources do you have available that you could help to support this? And so they fill out that information, they send it back to us, and then we work to build out those strike teams with what's available within the Oregon Fire Service.
Gotcha. So you say, hey, you know your area, you know what you need to have on hand. What can you spare right now? And then once you get all that, then it's your job at that office really then to designate and to split those up into different teams?
Yeah, so we work with those counties, those Fire Defense Board chiefs, and we make sure that the local fire agencies have the resources they need to cover their district, but at the same time being able to step up and to help the other communities that are in need. This same system we use for when we have conflagrations in Oregon during the summertime or different incidents. We've activated this system, I believe, for COVID, for different floods that have happened out in Umatilla County a couple years ago, the Vernonia flood, and different things like that.
And just for that clarification question, which I didn't state it at the beginning of this interview, is how many personnel and resources has the state of Oregon sent so far down to California?
Yeah, so we have sent roughly 300 firefighters down, 75 fire engines, down to California to support them. There's 15 strike teams total from across the state.
And they're going to be down there. Do we know how long? Or that's probably a fairly open-ended question, I would assume. But or is there a general timeline on once they're deployed down there of how long they're involved?
It's generally 2 weeks that they'll be down there. It's usually a 14-day deployment.
And for the funding of that, how does that work? Is that through that interagency that you were mentioning before that kind of receives a general fund, or does each fire department actually pay for this themselves?
So the funding part of this, the state that they're being deployed to pays for that, and they pay those for those resources.
Gotcha. So if Oregon asks for resources from California, say as you mentioned, with wildfires in the summer here, then Oregon pays California for those that personnel and the resources.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else that you think is really important for people to know just about this process and to understand, how this works with this cooperation and helping out other states?
Yeah, we've had a really strong partnership with California for several years. In working in partnership with them, we recognize that fire does not recognize map lines, and neither should our response. And so we're always willing to help and work with each other to provide the resources to help each other out when we have fires like this. California's come up here, Washington's come down here to help us, and we work with our neighbors pretty regularly. We're constantly tied in with each other to make sure that we have good working relationships and are ready to help each other out. One thing that we, as the state fire marshal, have been working on since about 2021 is boosting the capacity within our fire system. So we are almost done with rolling out 76 new fire engines and water tenders within the Oregon Fire Service. So that's new capacity and modern capacity, new engines and tenders that are into the system. In the summertime, we've had a grant, I think the last 3 or 4 summers, where last year we funded 191 local fire agencies a staffing grant so they can bring on extra people. And what's been cool about that resource is that we had last summer some fire agencies who hadn't been able to participate or send resources on a conflagration or a different type of assignment. They were able to do that because they had the funding to support that, but also keep their district staffed with folks. So we're working and we're getting creative on how we boost that system. And so we're constantly looking at that and making improvements in it.
I love that. I mean, as you mentioned, fire doesn't know any border or boundary, and certainly the state of Oregon has plenty of them of our own that are happening, unfortunately, and it'll happen this summer too, inevitably. And it's good to know, that's how that system works, of sharing those resources and being able to help out neighbors. Really quick, just about that organization. So you mentioned California and Washington. Does that also does the same agency oversee just those 3 states, or do we have different deals with different states surrounding us?
So the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, I believe it's nationwide. So we use that for when we work through North Carolina. We've sent folks out to Florida to help with hurricane stuff. So that's the system that all the states use to
Gotcha. So if somebody needs some help, they can put out that call, and other states can answer and help out. That's great. Well, John, thanks for walking through that for us, because I was just really curious about understanding how that works, and I'm sure some other people are too. Obviously important, and it's great that we have our firefighters down there helping them out too, of just what's going on down there in LA, and just being able to assist and then having that assistance when we need it as well. So I love that interagency, interstate, helping out. It's our neighbors, and again, fire doesn't know where it's at. So, well, John, thank you very much for joining us here today. I really, really appreciate your time.
No problem.
All right. Again, thank you to John for having some time to join. One other question I did ask after that interview was just to clarify if we anticipate